The new Amazon Prime television series Fallout is not just a solid video game adaptation that barely meets the long-held standard of, oh god, please just don't fuck this up, but instead has arguably become one of the greatest video game adaptations of all time, and on top of this, manages to become the greatest Fallout product since Fallout New Vegas, which is a feat in and of itself, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, I was so hooked on the show, so eager to find out what happens next, that I finished the entire first season in one sitting. And while you may have a right to be concerned about my mental state of being, let me assure you that this isn't just fan service for Fallout bros such as myself, but also manages to stand on its own and serves as one hell of a TV show with the financial heft of a mega corporation like Vault-Tec, Amazon, to pull off some very impressive things on the silver screen. Hello friends, Hansen here, and I love Fallout. Fallout New Vegas is my favorite video game of all time, and Fallout 3 is one of the most formative and important games in my personal history of video gaming. I've also played Fallout 4 extensively, and I've dabbled in Fallout 1, 2, and Tactics, although I didn't finish those games due to the litany of technical issues that I was forced to contend with throughout my playthrough. Where are those remakes at, Xbox? You own the IP, and literally pretty much everyone besides Chris Avellone, who is responsible for making Fallout what it is, but whatever. Typically, when it comes to video game adaptations, I try to hold no expectations at all due to the fact that most of the video game adaptations of yore poop the bed, as it were. But this has changed over the past few years, especially with the advent of Arcane, the League of Legends show on Netflix, which is, in my humble opinion, the first truly exceptional video game adaptation that we've ever gotten. Since then, we've gotten a few A-tier video game adaptations that include things like Cyberpunk Edgerunners, the Mario movie, the Last of Us HBO series, and maybe a few more that I'm forgetting. And fellas, I am proud to report that Fallout has joined this A tier, and this is due to a few very important things. Unlike The Last of Us, which is more or less a copy and paste job of the first game's cutscenes, plot, and characters, apart from the Bill and Frank episode, which is genuinely great and serves as a more interesting diversion from the game's series of events, Fallout is more like Edgerunners and even, dare I say, the Mario movie, where it borrows elements, themes, and recognizable things from the video games that spawn these things and then adapts them to play to the strengths of the medium that they find themselves in. And this could range from television to movies. Fallout's greatest strength is the fact that it borrows so heavily from its source material, and also it has great writing, and for this we have the dynamic duo of Jonathan Nolan, and yes, that's the brother of Christopher Nolan, probably haven't heard of that dude, and then on top of this we have Lisa Joy, and the two of these people, that's Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, previously successfully collaborated on Westworld, which is an HBO television series. On top of this, the show has incredible atmosphere, set pieces, and to top it all off, really groundbreaking and well-used music. In addition to this, Fallout has a trio of protagonists that are not only compelling, but also mirror the various karma levels that the player can choose to engage in throughout the gameplay experience of Fallout itself. Lucy McLean, our good karma leading lady, never fails to bring old world optimism, humor, and diplomacy to the various situations that she manages to find herself in. Lucy's innocence and naivety show her progression throughout the series, and while she manages to hold on to her good nature by the end of Season 1, she is certainly more scarred and capable as a result. Lucy also has a catchphrase where she says the line "okie dokie" all the time, and I find this to be very Fallout inspired and adds a fun little quirk to her character. Maximus, our neutral karma power armor clad Brotherhood squire, is also very interesting, and his neutrality to fluctuate between engaging in acts that are blatantly evil as well as good lead to create a very compelling character. It's also important to point out that Maximus belongs to the Brotherhood Brotherhood of Steel. And while this is interesting, I personally found Maximus as a character to be the least interesting offering out of the trio. But that's not really saying much given that all three are pretty excellent, and Maximus has many fun scenes that feature him in power armor, throwing shit around and kind of wrecking everything, which is always fun and entertaining to watch. And Maximus also has a few important moments of comedy that add well-needed levity to the show. And of course, it's that dark comedy that Fallout is known for, which is very, very important. And finally, Cooper Howard, our evil karma, ghoulish, badass cowboy, a man who is only a shell of his former, more honorable self, more prone to eat ass jerky and murder innocents than to help a sister out. Howard, or the Ghoul, is far and away the series' most fleshed out character, pardon the pun. He's not only developed in the present day in the show, but also through a series of flashbacks of pre-war America, where he's a rich and famous movie star in the Western genre, as well as a war hero from Anchorage, the famous battle in which the US fought China in Alaska in the Fallout universe. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, from a broad perspective, I think the show is excellent, and this is carried, a lot of which by the show's writing, its atmosphere, its music, as well as its very expensive set pieces. And while I do think it's excellent, I really only have two critiques of the series. One that's more minuscule, and one that's actually a huge problem, I think, for the show as well as the Fallout IP. So the first is the action scene choreography. Now, this isn't like a huge issue, but I just want to point out that there's a few scenes, particularly like where there's a scene where Lucy kills a robot with some defibrillators. I'm not really going to go too much in depth there, but that action scene choreography is really wonky, and it's like, okay, how did Lucy escape in this situation? It doesn't really make sense, and I think if the choreography was tightened up a little bit, that would just serve the show a lot better. Now, finally, my second critique, which is definitely more major, it has to do with the way the plot is structured of the show, as well as some of the implications for the Fallout timeline. So, of course, the major controversy that is going on right now is the fact that this show essentially communicates to the Fallout community, as well as anyone that watches the show, I guess, that Shady Sands, which is the capital of the New California Republic, a very important location, is nuked in 2077. And this obviously has some conflict with Fallout New Vegas, given that Fallout New Vegas takes place in 2281, and we never hear about this happening. So 4 years after this event supposedly happens, we have no idea that this is going on, and you even talk to the president of the NCR in Fallout New Vegas, so definitely kind of a big problem. So in some ways, I am cool with this plot twist, and that's a pretty big emphasis in the some ways, given I think it's interesting, but obviously this apparently happens before New Vegas, and I really think that the writers have kind of written themselves into a corner with this one, given that this must be some sort of mistake, or they have some kind of behind-the-scenes explanation that they're going to unveil to us in Season 2 of the television show. And then, on top of this, at the end of the first season, there is a shot of Lucy's father, Hank, as he overlooks a more destitute-looking and destroyed New Vegas. So apparently we're going to be dealing with elements of New Vegas in the show, which is exciting, but at the same time, this kind of reminds me, and you got to kind of bear with me as I do this kind of metaphor, but this sort of reminds me of Star Wars The Force Awakens, where Star Wars The Force Awakens was a very solid first outing that potentially could have set up a very interesting trilogy and a very interesting story that's going to span across multiple movies and really tell something that's compelling. Obviously, the Star Wars sequel trilogies did not do this, given that The Last Jedi as well as The Rise of Skywalker were not very well received by fans and by many general audiences alike. So my concern with the Fallout show is that in this first season, they've given us something very interesting. They've given us a solid first outing, but it looks like, and again with the Star Wars allegory, like, there's a lot of really similar things going on. Like the sequel series in Star Wars had a lot of money behind it, a lot of funding. It did a lot of things very well. But at the same time, with this Fallout series, I'm like, okay, can you stick the landing with this writing and with the direction that you're taking the Fallout universe in? Because you're really making a lot of large implications about the series. Like, you destroy New Vegas, you destroyed Shady Sands. How is this all going to find its footing? Are you going to be able to stick the landing with these decisions that you've made? I think only time will tell here, but we really only have season 1 to look at, and overall, I think it's a great adaptation that as a long-time Fallout fan, I am proud to call an addition to the Fallout canon. I'm interested to see how they handle things in season 2, and they definitely have a lot of explaining to do, but nonetheless, I think season 1 was very strong, and I was so hooked on the show that I finished it in one sitting, and it reminded me of how much I think Fallout is special and how much great lore and storytelling and atmosphere and really uniqueness is present in this series, because let me tell you, it really is special and it really is great. But anyways, fellas, I appreciate you tuning in. I'm definitely going to have some more Fallout content in the future, given that it's relevant right now, and I want to talk about it because I love Fallout, and I really haven't even gotten to scratch the surface on my love for Fallout on this channel, so look forward to that. But other than that, guys, this is Hansen with Ent Media, out.